On the Hawkeyes Sports Network from Learfield, this is the Fight for Iowa podcast. Brought to you by Athletico Physical Therapy, proud partner of the Iowa Hawkeyes and the Big Ten Conference. Hy-Vee, where there's a helpful smile in every aisle. Iowa's corn farmers of the Iowa Corn Growers Association and Iowa Corn Promotion Board. You may think Iowa grows corn, but the truth is, corn grows Iowa. Shields, we're right there with you in Des Moines, Sioux City, Iowa City, and Cedar Falls. University of Iowa Healthcare, changing medicine, changing lives. This is the Fight for Iowa podcast. Here's the voice of the Hawkeyes, Gary Dolphin.
Hawkeye redshirt sophomore Keaton Anthony was named a third-team All-American this week by the Collegiate Baseball newspaper. Anthony, a Georgia native, hit .389 with 9 home runs and 38 RBIs. His 22 doubles are second most in program history. Iowa is playing in the NCAA Regional as a 2-seed, facing 3-seed North Carolina in the opening round. It's the 6th postseason appearance for the Hawks and 3rd under 10th-year head coach Rick Heller. The Hawkeyes' 42 wins are second most in program history. Heller's team fashions a nice balance of pitching depth, outstanding defense, and an offense averaging 7.5 runs. Rick Heller joins us next on this week's Fight for Iowa podcast, sponsored by Athletico, UIHC, Iowa Corn, and Shields.
More of the Fight for Iowa podcast after this.
After a cancer diagnosis, it's natural to want to start treatment right away. But first, get a second opinion from a team that specializes in your cancer. I'm Dr. George Weiner, Director of University of Iowa Holden Comprehensive Cancer Center. Before you start treatment, you deserve to be confident you have the right diagnosis and know every option available to you. So whether it's with us or somewhere else, get a second opinion. It can change your care and your life.
Hey everyone, I'm Mark Wahlberg, and I have some exciting news to share. At Wahlburgers, we are all about bringing the family together to enjoy a great meal and have a great time. That's why right now, for a limited time, kids eat free every day at all Hy-Vee Wahlburger locations. Kids 12 and under can enjoy one free kids meal with any purchase of an adult burger, sandwich, or entree salad.
Bring the family to Wahlburgers and the Wahlburgers and Hy-Vee stores, where right now kids can eat free.
Now back to the Fight for Iowa podcast. Here's the voice of the Hawkeyes, Gary Dolphin.
The NCAA baseball tournament is one of the toughest postseasons to land a bid. Worthy Hawkeye teams have been frustrated by snubs in the past. A runner-up finish at the Big Ten Championships and a third-place finish in the regular season left no doubt that the Hawkeyes would join Maryland and Indiana in the run to Omaha. You could feel the exhale of relief from Coach Rick Heller when the bids were announced.
And it goes back to our first meeting in the fall, August 22nd. And, as the coach and administration, you have to fight when you feel like you've been slighted. That's just part of it, because we were the last 2 years, and our league was with other teams. So we fought and tried to do everything we could to make sure, that it didn't happen again. But with the team, we said to ourselves, what could we have done last year to make this a no-brainer? What could we have done to take it out of the committee's hands? And so that's what we set out to do. We set out to get off to a better start, which was really the only thing they could have used against us last season, was the fact that we didn't get off to like a great start. It wasn't a bad start by any stretch, but it was not a lighted up start. And so when we look back at our season, obviously winning a championship is the sure way, but 1 out of 13 is going to do that. And yeah, we set out to do that, came up just short in both the tournament and the regular season this year. But we also got off to the best start in school history. So this team took it and ran with it, and we trained and prepared harder than we ever have to try to get off to a good start when you have to travel on the road the first 4 weeks and play teams that have an advantage over you, and not use that as an excuse. And this team did that. And because of that, our RPI was able to stay in a position in the low 30s where it was almost impossible for them to not take us. And the disappointing thing is that for the last 3 years, the committee has pretty much solely depended on the RPI, whereas prior to the COVID year, I would have told you, I thought the selection committee was doing a wonderful job of using common sense and looking at this team in California that's kind of landlocked and can't play anybody midweek to get their RPI up, and say, that team maybe has a 60 RPI, or maybe the Iowa Hawkeyes have a 58 RPI, and using common sense and saying, well, if they were located in the Southeast, that 58 RPI is a 28 RPI or a 25 RPI. And the human element was a big part of it, it seemed back then. And I felt like we'd come a long, long way from 20 years ago when it was kind of the old boys network, and it was tough to break in and this and that. And then all of a sudden, boom, this last 3 years, the committee has completely flipped and went almost solely on the RPI. And my take on that is then why have a committee? Just get a computer and spit out the teams. Yeah. And we all know that that's what we have to do. And if we can't do it, we can't do it. So for me to sit here and just be, happy that we're in and not talk about the other teams that I feel were treated unjustly this year because of how the RPI affects things, would be wrong in my opinion. I mean, I think that there are a bunch of teams that should be in over teams that were chosen because of the location that they play in. And if a Santa Barbara or an Irvine were located in Texas or Oklahoma or Alabama or Mississippi or Florida, they would have probably a top 20 RPI. And instead they're sitting at home like we were the last 2 years. So that's my soapbox. Hopefully something can change. Either get rid of the RPI like the basketball coaches did. They gave it a run. They found out that there were some flaws in it, and they tried to fix it, and they got it done. And we're a sport where we need to be able to do that as well. We need to look at things and go, this isn't right. We have to try to fix it as best we can. I'm hopeful that the powers that be and there's enough coaches in the country that are doing what I'm doing with you right now, or stand up and just keep fighting. And ultimately it'd be administrators and athletic directors that have to weigh in and get that adjusted. So anyway, that's that, but I'm super pumped for our guys that we were able to get it done this year. And these guys brought it every single day. And that's how we were able to overcome, high odds and keep that RPI in the 30s and play good teams and beat good teams in the first 4 weeks when we're traveling, and then try to do the best job we can once we get into Big Ten play.
Yeah, went over then number one ranked LSU certainly was one that catapulted you into that great start out of the gate. But across 56 games, Coach, 298 team batting average. The Hawks scored 7.5 runs an outing. Pitching staff allowed just under 4 a game, almost 100 stolen bases, led by Sam Peterson. The defense posted an outstanding fielding percentage north of 980. This was about as proportioned or coordinated a team as you could hope for. Kudos to you and your staff.
Well, thank you. And it was by design best we could, with 11.7 scholarships in baseball is split up amongst 35 guys. It's not that easy to get that kind of balance. In the past, we've never been, I'm not saying we've been bad offensively or anything like that, because we haven't been. We've been really solid in all 3 areas the 10 years that we've been here, but the pitching had been really, really super the last few years, pitcher of the year the last 2 years, and breaking school records and being in the top 5, nationally in a lot of statistics. And then the defense has always been one of the things we hung our hat on, was more the pitching and defense, and then whatever we had to do to score enough runs to win the game. And then Coach Sutherland, Marty Sutherland, our recruiting coordinator, our staff, we've been really trying hard to get more balance up and down the lineup, where not only do we have speed, but we have speed guys that can hit it out of the ballpark on occasion. And maybe we didn't have Jake Adams, with 29 home runs and leading the country this year, but we have, 9 guys that can hit 5 and 7 guys that can maybe be in that 8 to 15 range. So on days when the wind isn't blowing in, we can match teams with the power. On days when the wind is blowing in, we can steal some bases and affect people with the short game and the running game. We do a great job with our strike zone discipline. If you look at our walks to strikeouts and hit by pitches, they're almost even, and that's really difficult to do in today's world with the stuff that the pitchers have. And then follow it up. This year's defense has been elite level, especially on our infield. Just super balanced team, a team that can beat you in a number of ways. And that's honestly the reason we were able to get off to the good start. And the reason we were able to sustain things throughout the course of the season without any kind of drop is that they could beat you any number of ways, and they did. If we had to come back from a big deficit, that was possible. If we had to win 2-1, that was possible. And then the pitching staff this year has been great. A lot different than what the Hawkeye fans are used to seeing, in a sense that it'd been pretty traditional in the past where you had your 3 guys and they were all pretty much elite strike throwers that would get you into the 7th inning, and then you went to your bullpen. We had a lot of kids this year who were younger, had great stuff, super stuff, but still work in progress with strikes and being able to pitch backwards and throw change ups and fastball counts and the things that good pitchers do. And so it was different. A lot of games we were in the bullpen in the 3rd or 4th inning this year, but still found ways to win. And that is a testament to the depth of our pitching staff. And then the other thing is, we lost our pitching coach, Robin Lund, to the Detroit Tigers. I think you and I talked about that in November. We lost David Pearson, our catching coach, and a really good coach, to the Dodgers as a scout. And then we brought in Sean McGrath as our pitching coach, and Mitch Bowe came in to take David's spot. And not an easy transition for any staff, and then to have the season that we've had, is a testament to the job that both Sean and Mitch have done, and our players for supporting those guys and buying in. And you see a lot of teams take a big step backwards when they lose their top assistants. And again, this year, we've had to do that multiple times in my career at really the most inopportune times, and survive it, and not only survive it, but move the program forward. And this team was able to do that as well.
I want to come back to pitching too, Coach, but before we leave hitting, DeRiggi, Peterson, Seegers, Rader, Tello, I remember you raving about him when he came into the program this past year. Honar, Huckstorp, there were, you talked about that offensive balance. There were contributions from up and down the order. In the end, who emerged, who took off, or maybe was a difference maker that you didn't see coming? Maybe that piece to the puzzle that led to these kinds of numbers.
Well, the elephant in the room is that we don't have Keaton Anthony with us, and Keaton was on pace to potentially win the Big Ten Player of the Year with those kind of numbers that he had. And then having that force around all those guys that you just mentioned was a different dynamic. But when, we haven't had Keaton in 14, 15 games, and what you saw was the rest of those guys, it was good enough. I mean, they just kept doing what they were doing. I don't know that anybody, and that was the message from us, was just be yourself. We're still in a good place, because Braden Frazier stepped in, and look what he's done. Look at his numbers. I mean, he has really come through for us since he started playing every day about 14 games ago. Been in the program for 5 years. Really good defender in the outfield, but his offensive production is the best in his career to this point. So he's one that has really stepped up down the stretch and helped us a ton. Michael Seegers, our outstanding shortstop, best defender in the Big Ten, and I think one of the top 5 or 10 shortstops defensively in the country. He really has stepped up his offense the last 3-4 weeks, and has been a guy kind of hiding in the weeds down there in the 6-7 spot, and getting hits and driving runs in and getting rallies started on the bottom half of the lineup. And then our catcher, deserves a ton of credit. You know, Cade Moss has caught the majority of the games this season, and he's done an elite level job of receiving with our pitchers, controlling the running game, which is the primary job of the catcher, at least in our program. But Cade has sat down in the 9-hole and just been very consistent all year, gets a clutch hit every series that might win the game, finds ways to get on base. He's done a great job. You know, the guys at the top, Ben Wilmus, when Ben stepped into the lineup, Ben, his on base percentage at one time was like close to 600 for about a 3-week period. Now he's cooled down a little bit, but it's still in a awesome spot, well over 400 on base percentage as our leadoff guy. Finds ways to get on base and just is a super pest for the defense and the pitchers at the top of the order. But Sam Peterson has been big. I don't know if the fans are aware of this, but we went on just a little skid, and it hit at the worst time when because we faced the two best teams that we were going to face in the Big Ten the first 2 weeks of the Big Ten season. We had to play Maryland first and then Indiana second. And Sam broke a bone in his hand and had to have some surgery and a pin to put the bone back together. And so we didn't have Sam for those times. And that was big, because Sam not only is a great defender in the outfield, but he is super fast, as you see with the stolen bases, but he is that dynamic player that can beat you any number of ways. He can steal bags, but he can hit it out of the ballpark. And losing Sam for that stretch was rough on us. And thank goodness he's a tough kid. I mean, I think he only missed 12 to 14 days and was back in the lineup and has been playing ever since. And when he came back, we kind of hit our stride again. And it's been good to have Sam back. And then, Sam Honar has had some really big hits for us and doing a good job at second base. And then, like you said, Ray Ortello really has come a long way from where he was in the fall with his defense. Anybody that watched the Big Ten tournament saw him make some incredible plays, big league plays in the Big Ten tournament defensively, and has been just steady Eddie all season long with the offense. Great, consistency, driving in runs, getting on base, doing whatever he needs to do. Super unselfish player and a great teammate, and he's just played awesome this year.
We'll come right back on our Fight for Iowa podcast with Iowa baseball coach Rick Heller. The Hawks are the 2 seed and take on number 3 seed North Carolina this weekend down in Terre Haute, the home of the top seed Indiana State Ball Club. We'll get Rick's thoughts on the opponent, North Carolina, opening round. Right now, let's pause and hear from our wonderful sponsors on Fight for Iowa.
More of the Fight for Iowa podcast after this.
We all love a good win, catching up with friends, saving money at the pump, soaking up the perfect Iowa day, sitting down to a really, really good meal. These are the everyday delights that make us smile. These are the moments that connect us all as Iowans. And these are the wins that, more often than not, start with Iowa's farm families and the crop they're growing. Because when corn grows Iowa, Iowans win. Learn more about how to share your own wins at iowacorn.org/IowansWin.
You don't have to go to the game to get a game program. You can download it now by visiting the game day page on HawkeyeSports.com. That's right, the game program is now digital and it's free. So check it out. Get the roster, the stats, and fascinating stories about today's matchup. Just go to HawkeyeSports.com and click on Game Day.
Oh, you know that old injury of yours? The one in your knee or maybe back? Instead of going to the doctor and then doing physical therapy, why not start with therapy first? Athletico Physical Therapy is changing the whole healing process around. Their physical therapists will find the source of your pain and help fix it. Start with them and start living pain-free. Just like that.
It all starts with Athletico Physical Therapy. Schedule your free assessment at athletico.com. No prescription needed. Proud partner of the Iowa Hawkeyes.
Now back to the Fight for Iowa podcast. Here's the voice of the Hawkeyes, Gary Dolphin.
Coach, we visited about the pitching earlier. A number of guys, to your point, led the ERA charge. Langenberg, Breck, Morgan, Jack Whitlock was terrific in key spots. That pitching depth really was a savior for you, wasn't it?
No, it definitely was, because like I said, was a work in progress for us with our starters, a good chunk of the season, and having a solid plan and a large number of guys that we could go to get through the game if you had to go to that bullpen in the early part of a game, and getting those young guys the starts and the consistency and the good routine to be a starter has paid off, because now we're in the second half of the season, towards the backside. You saw those guys going a lot more innings, and the games turning into more traditional type starts that you were used to seeing, and it really paid off. And just a bunch of guys in the bullpen, Luke Llewellyn, Will Christopherson, all of those guys in the bull, Jared Simpson, Zach Volker, those guys were just awesome. And now the second half of the season, Jack Whitlock has really emerged as a fantastic bullpen guy for us. We saw him in the Big Ten tournament come in against Michigan, strike out 3 with the bases loaded at a leverage point in that game, and that was just incredible. And then again against Maryland, he came in the championship game and in the third inning and struck out a batter with the bases loaded again. And Jack has been just awesome, and I think he has the most wins on our team coming out of the bullpen. So just a great job by the staff, and a great job by Coach McGrath, organizing it and figuring things out. And you look at this team, the walks are quite a bit higher than what we would like, but those have been minimized here the last 5 weeks as well. We only had to live through some stuff early and survived it. But the thing that you look at with our team that you really got to kind of look a little close is that this team, if I'm not mistaken, I'd have to look it up, but I think we're either first or second in the country in hits allowed per 9 innings. And so the ability to get out of jams or strike guys out because of that stuff helped us survive some of the jams that we made for ourselves with the walks or hit by pitches and the free bases that happened. And that for me is the old head coach. It makes you get a little older, but they were able to get it done most of the time, and that's a pretty impressive stat.
And that'll be critical again this weekend. Hopefully you don't have quite as many jams, but you're playing an outstanding North Carolina team, Coach. They've beaten some juggernauts here in the past week or two, including the ACC tournament. Virginia, Georgia Tech. Now they lost to Clemson. Clemson might be one of the hottest teams in the country right now. So this is really, it's an ACC opponent. It's a solid foe. Give us a little scouting report.
Well, no question about it. They a lot of the guys across the country that do the prognosticating felt like they were a 2 seed, 100% the best 3 seed in the tournament, and a team that can get to Omaha and do damage in Omaha. For whatever reason, the people that maybe don't pay as close of attention kind of looked at where they were and their record and thought maybe they weren't that good, but that's not the case at all. I mean, they're extremely talented, and Coach Forbes has done a great job there after taking over for Coach Fox, legendary coach at North Carolina, and was an assistant for him for quite a while. And the strength, I think the strength in the initial, we're still, diving in and doing the scouting report, but the strength of the North Carolina team that was glaring to me right away was their bullpen. They have really good arms in their bullpen. Not that their starters, are chopped liver or anything. They're solid. But anybody that's heard my pregame shows or heard, the interviews during the weeks as we prepare for a weekend series or a game, 9 times out of 10, our plan is to really work that pitch count in the starter, try to get him out of the game in the 4th or 5th inning, and get to the bullpen where we feel like we can maybe do some damage before you get to their closer. The arms that North Carolina are going to throw at us, it's going to be 93, 95 with a nasty slider, 93, 95 with a really plus changeup. You're going to see high-end arms the entire game once that starter goes out, and that to me is their bread and butter. They're really solid. balanced team, offensively, defensively. There's not any real glaring weakness with any of that. I mean, they're going to be very athletic and very talented, and we'll have to go out and be our best, and that's really the approach we've taken the whole year. I mean, we've literally played every game this year as a playoff game, to try to get into the tournament in that large bid, and it won't be anything different for our guys than what we do. And whether it's LSU or North Carolina on the jersey, or whether it's Grandview College or Western Illinois or Michigan, it doesn't matter in our system and how we try to play the game. We try to take care of the controllables and not worry about the name on the jersey as much as how we take care of our business. And we are well schooled at that, and that's what we do. And I expect our guys to go out and give a good effort.
Coach Rick Heller adds, baseball is like any other sport. Control what you can control, and that's the next pitch. The Hawks face the Tar Heel pitchers that will throw 93 to 95 miles an hour and play on a turf infield, which is pretty common. Of the 13 teams that play Big Ten baseball, only 4 have grass. I'll wrap up this week's Fight for Iowa after this pause.
More of the Fight for Iowa podcast after this.
Knowing that I can make a difference in my patients' lives keeps me motivated every single day. Hi, I'm Dr. Kanya Ferguson at University of Iowa Healthcare. With academic medicine, we see the toughest cases, so we're always innovating. And we bring the best minds together to collaborate, so there's more brain power focused on you, because that leads to exceptional care for our patients and our community. See how at uihc.org.
Hey, Hawkeyes fans, the wait is over. The Iowa men's and women's basketball teams are back on the court, and Shields has everything you need to cheer on your favorite players all season long. Take your game day gear to the next level with Shields Fan Shop. We have an unmatched lineup of gear, including jerseys, hats, hoodies, and more to help you show off your team colors. So gear up, Hawkeyes fans, and celebrate all season with Shields, a proud partner of Iowa basketball and hoops fans everywhere.
Now back to the Fight for Iowa podcast. Here's the voice of the Hawkeyes, Gary Dolphin.
Thanks again to Iowa baseball coach Rick Heller for his appearance on our show. Good luck to the Hawks in their quest for the World Series. The Fight for Iowa podcasts can be found on your favorite apps like Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and Google, as well as HawkeyeSports.com. Until next week, I'm Gary Dolphin. Go Hawks.
You've been listening to the Fight for Iowa podcast. Hawkeye fans, remember to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast app. Once you become a Fight for Iowa podcast subscriber, you'll automatically receive the latest episodes of the Fight for Iowa podcast, the Hawkeyes Voice podcast, Hawk Talk replays, exclusive game day content, and more. Until next time, on Iowa, and go Hawks! The preceding has been a Learfield presentation on the Hawkeye Sports Network.